Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Is that loud enough? Well, I was going to give you a brief introduction about me, but a little bit about me, just really quickly. I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. I went to school there. I was in 4-H for about 2 years in Tucson. I showed rabbits. I'm sort of wishing that I had participated in public speaking because I might be a little bit less nervous, but I met my husband at the University of Arizona, and then we traveled around the country after school for a little bit, and finally settled in Columbia in 2013. And I started working for the 4-H Foundation at that time, and had just fell in love with the program all over again. And I wake up every morning and I'm really excited because I get to go to work and talk about 4-H and talk about extension, MU extension, and the amazing things that we're doing here in the state of Missouri. So a little bit about the Missouri 4-H Foundation. If you are not familiar with us, we are an independent fundraising foundation. We were founded in 1949 by a group of 4-H club supporters, and their mission at the time was to best meet the needs and serve the interests of 4-H clubs and youth youth groups throughout the state of Missouri. As I said, we are an independent 501c3 organization, and we're governed by an elected board of trustees. Our current mission is to maximize 4-H youth development through resource acquisition and management. I had to look at that because we just revised our mission statement earlier this year. So let's see. Okay, so we, about a year ago in the spring of 2016, the Missouri 4-H Foundation signed a memorandum of understanding with the university, formalizing our relationship with MU Extension and Advancement. And under the terms of this agreement, the university's role is to provide oversight for all of our fundraising activities, and also to provide resources, support, and recognition for our donors and volunteers through MU's Office of Advancement. The foundation's role is still to support the Missouri 4-H program through fundraising activities, donor development, volunteer recognition, and then also just to promote the 4-H program statewide. The 4-H Foundation, as I said, is still is an independent 501c3, so we are also responsible for the management, investment, and disbursement of all funds that are held by the Missouri 4-H Foundation. Our endowments are held separately from the university, but all of our gifts are tracked and processed through the university. So we have sort of a hybrid relationship with the university and Advancement. And we're still definitely learning as we go because this is a new partnership. So, and I'm also definitely, I think Jim covered, I'm brand new to this position. So my first official day was August 14th. So I'm 2 weeks into officially being the director. And prior to this, I felt like I had a really, really good grasp of the 4-H Foundation and how we operate, but I'm still learning about how Extension operates in the counties. And also, in the spirit of recognition, thank you to all of you for all that you do as Extension Council members and volunteers in your counties, because without you, there would not be an Extension or a 4-H program where we are. So, I mean, we really cannot do any of the good work that we're doing without your support, so. Alrighty. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to that really quickly. We are, as I mentioned a couple of times, we're an independent 501c3, so we do conduct independent annual audits in order to maintain our 501c3 status, separate from the university. So, so under this new structure, the supervision of the Missouri 4-H Foundation staff is conducted by MU's Office of Advancement. So I report directly to Kat Comley Adams, who many of you probably know. And then Janice Perkins supports Kat. I also receive some supervision from our Board of Trustees. We meet regularly throughout the year. We communicate, and they help guide our vision and our focus for fundraising. And they also help us fundraise. Underneath me, Chris Willow is our advancement coordinator, and she manages our entire scholarship process. So we award a little over 60 scholarships annually to 4-H members attending not only MU, but lots of other universities, both in-state and out of state. And Chris manages that entire process. And then Dina Brown Hood is our part-time accountant. Since we still have all of our endowments held separately, she basically manages all of our funds. She manages our audit process, and she also helps provide management and support to our budget process. So earlier this year, the Missouri 4-H Foundation Board of Trustees began the process of developing a 5-year strategic plan. And we're hoping to have it completed by the end of this calendar year. And goals within that strategic plan that they're outlining include both measurable targets, numeric goals, and then also more strategic organizational goals that hopefully will guide us for long-term growth and success in the organization. Our plan is to align our fundraising goals with 4-H's programmatic priorities. And I know that the state 4-H office, their goal is to try to align their priorities with the extension counties, so that hopefully by the end of this process, we will have fundraising goals that align with county and state program goals all the way through. So our goal is also to provide support to both the state and the county level in terms of fundraising support. And we provide a lot of different levels of fundraising support to counties. They include gift processing. We can deposit checks directly into your gift funds or endowment accounts. We can send thank you letters to your donors and produce pledge reminders. We can also do research on donors. We can identify prospective donors. We can prioritize them based on their wealth and capacity, and we can also analyze giving trends in your county, and then identify people that are already giving in your county. Maybe they haven't given yet to Extension, but they're there and they are supporting the university. We also can help you with solicitations. So we can visit prospects with you, either individuals or corporations or foundations. We can submit funding proposals on a county's behalf or in partnership with counties. And we can also help you complete all of the necessary gift agreements that might go along with maybe a planned gift or an endowment or something like that. We provide regular reporting for counties. If you hold an endowment, we provide annual, or actually more than annual, regular reports about how your endowment is doing. And then also donor lists. If your donors are supporting the organization, and if those gifts are being recorded at the state level, they're receiving recognition at the state level, and they're being stewarded by the university, which I think helps. And by tracking and making sure that we have a record of all giving throughout the state, that really helps us create a holistic picture of the level of support that MU is receiving across the entire state. So that when somebody like Marshall is out in a county, he knows who is supporting that county, and he's well informed about the level of support that Extension is already receiving in that particular area. We also can help counties develop multi-layered fundraising strategies that may include direct mail or telethons, sponsored research, major gifts, planned gifts, special events, depending on what your interest is in fundraising, and also gifts in kind that go along with that. And gifts in kind could vary a huge gamut. So. We also provide support in establishing endowments. So we can help you if you're interested. Many counties already have an endowment, but if you don't and you're interested in establishing an endowment, Kat Adams would definitely be a great resource to help you establish an endowment in your county. And then, of course, all counties throughout the state, extension councils, or our derive their charitable status through MU's 501c3 or the Missouri 4-H Foundation's 501c3. So we can accept gifts on your behalf and pass them through to your county if that's the case. And then, of course, the MU Extension has gift accounts for every county and in many cases, endowments. So I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of the different streams of revenue that make up the support for MU Extension. And they start with grants and contracts. An example of this might be a local farm support from a local farm bureau or maybe a USDA grant. There are many grants that are supporting county programs. National 4-H Council often awards grants to county programs to conduct STEM or science initiatives, something like that in a county. Strategic partnerships might include like a large donation from a grocery store, a large food donation from a grocery store for a special event that you're conducting. Fees for service. In 4-H, this usually refers to registration fees for camps or projects. And maybe in terms of extension, it might be a fee for conducting a soil analysis or something. And then, of course, private philanthropic support and endowments. There are currently 14 counties in the Northeast region that have an endowment, and the amounts vary from about $2,500 all the way up to $60,000. So it's a really wide variety of balances. And then annual disbursements are based on a percentage of what your current endowment balance is. And so if counties wanted to request support from those balances, the process is really simple. You would have a meeting, you would have a vote on how much to request and the specific project that you want to support. Record that vote within your meeting minutes, and then send that information to Janice Perkins, who supports Kat Adams, and she can get you some support for your organization or for whatever project that you're working on. And as I said, it's based on a percentage of your current endowment balance. So I'm just going to go over a quick case study. Henry County Extension established a $350,000 endowed fund to support a 4-H youth program assistant. And they started really, really simply by engaging their volunteers and their council members to start to develop a prospect list. They just started thinking about parents, volunteers, people in their community that are already engaged with Extension or 4-H to develop their prospect list. And then they followed a multi-level approach. They started with a direct mail piece. And then they followed that direct mail piece up with some phone calls, personal phone calls, and then hopefully those led to some one-on-one visits with donors. Throughout their entire campaign, they just offered general reminders throughout all of their communications, just reminding people that they were conducting this endowment campaign. And both their volunteers and their staff made themselves accessible to donors to be able to answer questions about what they were doing and why they were doing it. So. All right, now you all should have a handout in front of you that says brainstorming tool for understanding, for identifying prospects. And so I just want to give you all a couple of minutes to try and think of at least one person in your county that you think may have an affinity for the 4-H program. Or extension, and may be willing to support a project in your area. And then keep in mind that people that are already engaged with extension or 4-H are more likely to be receptive to a solicitation. So I'll just give you a couple minutes if you can maybe think of one person. It could be a volunteer, as I said, or a parent, or an alum, a 4-H alum, or something like that. You were able to identify at least one person. That's everybody. That's awesome. So that's really the first step in organizing a successful fundraising campaign. So you've already started the first step of that. So take this information back to your counties, and if you are interested in conducting a fundraising campaign, start with something like this. Meet with your fellow council members, and just try to think of people that you know in your community that may have a relationship with the organization and want to support it. Sure.
So you have names of past donors?
We do.
Okay, and when you say grateful clients, those persons who have benefited by the scholarships or something?
That is a great example. Yeah, somebody who has maybe benefited from either an extension program or a 4-H program, maybe something like that. So yeah. So now that you've identified your list of prospects, you need to develop a plan for how to approach them. And your plan definitely needs to include, sorry, let me get to the next slide. Your plan needs to include a goal that clearly defines why you are raising money. When you meet with a donor, they're going to want to know why you're approaching them, why this project is important, and why it's important right now. So I often like to maybe write up a script before I am going to meet with somebody, just so that I'm really clear in my mind about what exactly I am asking them to support. It's also important to try to identify people that already, as I said, have a relationship with Extension or 4-H. The Kat and I can help you identify people that maybe do have a relationship with 4-H. If you have a list of people that you think might, we can run them through our system and see if they have any sort of connection already, either through fundraising or volunteering or another avenue. And then you need to determine an amount before you meet with somebody. And again, we can help you identify maybe what level of gift that person would be capable of making. And that meaningful amount can vary. For somebody like me, a really meaningful amount would be $1,000. For other people, it might be $100,000. So just understanding what a really meaningful amount to that donor would be is important to know before you meet with them. It's also really important during these meetings to really listen to your donors and try and understand what they're really passionate about, so that you can try to connect their passions with your project. That's the goal, is to try to help them. They want to, in most cases, they want to support a project, and they want to support something they're really passionate about. So your job is going to be to help them realize why this project is so important and the impact that they can make in supporting it. And really the best way to do that is to listen to them and ask them questions about what they're passionate about, and maybe what they want to accomplish with their philanthropy. And I don't think that people are always asked that question, or they don't really think about, what are my goals with my philanthropy? What do I want to do with that? It may be a secondary thing in their mind, but asking them questions to really get them thinking about it sometimes brings focus and allows you to make that connection between what they're really passionate about and this particular project. And then also, it's really important to understand and accept that not every person is going to say yes, and that's okay. I have gotten rejected many times. Not many times, but it's all right. Maybe this project just isn't the right fit for them at this time. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they are rejecting you or Extension. It just means that it's just not the right project at this moment. So you've developed your prospect list. You now have your plan outlined. You know exactly what you're raising money for and how much you would like to raise money for. And so now what do? You have to ask them for money during this meeting. And actually, these meetings, it may take a couple of meetings before you get to an ask. Your first meeting, it depends on the donor. Some donors might be ready for an ask right away if they have a really great connection with 4-H, with Extension and 4-H, and if they already know what you're doing. Other donors may need to be educated about the project. Maybe they need to come to an event and see whatever it is that you're doing or you're trying to raise money for in action, and maybe see some kids at a livestock show or something like that. So the first step is obviously to start with small talk, but don't let small talk dominate your conversation. Start with their family just to get the ball rolling, and then early on in the conversation, try to transition to your purpose and make sure that they are really aware of what the purpose of this meeting is. You could say something like, the reason that I've asked you to meet with me is because I want to talk to you about a really important project that I think you might be interested in supporting. Make it clear that you are there to talk to them about their support for a project. It's also important to try to demonstrate the impact of this project to them. That is one of the reasons why if somebody says no to a project, maybe we weren't able to clearly demonstrate to them how important this project is to them. So it's important for you to understand, for you to know why it's so important and how they can help make it a reality. And then also, when you're meeting with someone and you're asking for money, your ask does need to be specific. So you would want to say something like, Diane, I would love for you to consider making a $10,000 gift to support this project, rather than saying something like, I really hope maybe at some point in the future you would consider a gift to this project. Because if you say something like that, they're probably not going to respond, and it'll just drag on and on and on forever. So if you ask them something really, really specific, a specific dollar amount, they know where you're at and they know what the ask is. And it's also a good idea to try and have something in writing. So if you're going to a meeting with somebody and you're asking them for a $10,000 gift, make sure that you have something that they can walk away from that meeting with, because they most likely won't be able to give you an answer right there. They're going to need some time to think about it. And think about whether or not this is something that they really want to support. And so it's important to give them some information that they can take away from that meeting with and refer back to. And then this is always the hardest part, but it's the most important part. After you've asked them for a gift, you need to not say anything at all. Wait for them to say the next thing, because they're going to need some time to think about whether or not this is something that they would consider. And many times, 2 minutes can feel like an hour, but it's important to stay quiet during that time and allow them the time to really think about it. And you don't want to jump the gun, because more than likely, if you say anything before they do, you're going to say something like, I know that sounds like a lot of money, but maybe we could, bring it down a little bit. Maybe it's not a lot of money for them. Maybe they just are wanting to take their time and think about if this is the right project for them. So. And so what if they say no? Again, as I said before, not everyone is going to say yes to a solicitation, and that's okay. It's important not to take it personally, because by them rejecting this particular project doesn't necessarily mean that they're rejecting you or Extension. As I said before, it just means that this is maybe not the right fit for them. This particular project is not the right fit for them. But it is really important to thank them for their time in meeting with you and learning about maybe Extension and 4-H if this is all new to them. It's also really important to ask them if they would be willing to consider a future visit, because you want to leave that door open with them. Even though they said no, they might be interested in another project at another time. And it's also important to remind yourself of what you did accomplish. So maybe before this meeting, you didn't really understand what their capacity was or what they were really, really passionate about. Now you know, and now you can go back to them at another time with something that fits a little bit better. So there are a few reasons why people say no. As I mentioned before, people that have a relationship with MU and Extension or 4-H are more likely to be receptive to an ask. So if they have no relationship, they may not be willing to consider a gift. Also, if the cause doesn't fit into their priorities, that's why it's really important for you to listen to what they are passionate about during these meetings, so that you can identify what they are interested in supporting. And then maybe if the impact is not clear, if you weren't able to clearly demonstrate how important this project is. And I actually find it helpful sometimes, depending on the donor and depending on the project, to bring somebody with me that has a really strong vested interest in this project. So for example, if I am raising money for one of our animal science programs. I might bring either a volunteer who's really, really passionate about that project and is invested in it. I might bring them along with me to talk about why it's so important and their experience with it. And it also sometimes helps if you're nervous to have somebody else there with you to help guide the conversation. Maybe the ask wasn't effective, or they felt pressured. If they felt pressured or uninspired, they're probably not going to walk away from that meeting feeling good. So it's important not to try not to pressure somebody, obviously, into making a gift. Because if they're not going to make a gift, if they feel pressured, they're not going to want to make a gift. And then if the person that is asking them to support a project hasn't already supported it, especially if it's a volunteer, they may not be as inclined to make a gift. I know that people are more receptive to asks if the person that's asking, especially if it's a peer, has already supported this project, because that demonstrates to them that this person is really committed and they really, really support this project and are behind it 100%. And then obviously, if you don't follow up with them, chances are the ask isn't really going to go anywhere. So it's important to follow up with them right after you've met with them, especially if they have any questions that you weren't able to answer during the meeting. You can send them some more information, they can consider it, and then schedule a time with them to actually meet again, to talk about it some more if they'd like to. And then some people simply don't have the capacity that we thought that they did. And that's all right. Now you've met with them and you know that they aren't able to support a project at the level that we thought they were. That happens sometimes. Sometimes we overestimate and sometimes we underestimate what people are able to give. It's really important to remember, though, that the number one reason that people don't give is that they were never asked to give. And I guarantee you, if you ask somebody to support a project, they're not going to get upset. They're more than likely going to be really happy that you asked, that you thought of them to support this project. And I mean, from this meeting, you've learned so much more about them. They probably are going to walk away from this meeting thinking about MU Extension and maybe how it can they can be involved more and support the program. And you are definitely one step closer to an ask by meeting with them. If they don't say no, if they do say no, or if they do say yes, then that's great, and you have just secured support for your county extension program. So I have some time if anybody has any questions.
You can provide direction if it were an actual endowment, and where that could be incrementally, the donations could be done incrementally to the
Yep.
endowment.
Yes, absolutely. So are you referring to like pledge
Yeah.
pledge agreements? Yes.
Yes, uh-huh.
Yeah, we can do multi-year pledges if you have a donor that wants to make a significant gift but wants to do it over a period of years. We can do that, and we can help you provide all the paperwork that would be necessary for a pledge agreement, a long-term pledge agreement. So. I just want to reiterate that we are, Kat and I are here to help support what you're doing at the county level. So if you want to fundraise for your program, if you want to do a fundraising campaign, don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we want to be here to help you support your program. Sure.
What percent do you take out of these donations for endowment? How does that work?
So the endowments, I believe, I may have to verify, but I'm pretty sure that the percentage is a 2% assessment fee for endowment funds. For non-endowment funds, the university assesses a 5% fee.
And then is there a quarterly fee for paperwork or anything when you
No.
turn into the extension?
No, there's no sort of quarterly fee. It's
So
just
just
a one-time,
2% or
it's just a
5% of the
one-time,
donation.
gift assessment fee. If it's an endowment, I believe it's 2%, and then if it's just a gift to a gift fund, it's a 5% fee. Alrighty, well, if there's no other questions, I am going to be here for lunch. If anybody wants to reach out to me personally, you can. And I appreciate you all coming here and spending your time talking about extension and supporting it. So, thank you.